show this week. We were partially preempted by the Mormons, so for those of you who had been watching the Mormons, stay tuned. You might learn something. Welcome, everybody. We've moved to our new channel. We were supposed to be at our new time. We're on channel 16 for you watching live in Austin, and we were supposed to begin at 4:30, but as I said, we got preempted. Next week, we'll be back on from 4:30 to 6, and that'll be the new normal time slot. This is the Atheist Experience. It's a live call-in television program sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week is Jen Peeples, and we're going to put the telephone number up for you shortly and take calls. We won't have our normal full 90 minutes, but we'll do what we can with as many callers as want. One of the reasons for moving to 16 is that it gets us slightly more access than Channel 10 did, including access to the UT campus. So hopefully some of you who are sitting around doing your homework and happen to be, artsy-fartsy people who stay tuned to public access, maybe you'll keep watching and give us a call and talk about it. As I mentioned, we're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road beginning at 11:30, except for the first Sunday of the month when we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. This morning was a lecture. Russell Glasser delivered the lecture. It was on effective evangelism. The lecture series covers a wide range of topics depending on who we can get to come in and speak. Sometimes it's one of us giving a lecture. Sometimes it's guest speakers with expertise in all sorts of areas, from science to religion to philosophy to consumer advocates or child advocates for the courts. We've had military members, Oak de Berg's, come in to lecture before, so that's available to the public. It's one of the many services the ACA provides. In addition to our morning events, we have a number of other events throughout the week, including happy hour every Thursday at the Dog and Duck Pub beginning at around 7 o'clock. That's at the corner of 17th and Guadalupe. And after this program's over, we get together for dinner. We're on till 6, so we'll be there around 6:30 at Threadgills on Riverside. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to any of our events. You don't have to be a member. But if you're coming down to preach, proselytize, or provoke, please don't. Just pick up the phone when we get out the number, and you can call in to explain what you believe, why you believe it, hopefully. I keep asking for that, and I don't know that we ever actually get it. Or you can call in to talk about whatever we happen to be talking about, whatever you want to talk about, or just tell us why we're wrong or why you're right. In addition, if you visit the ACA website, www.atheist-community.org, there's a bunch more information there about the group, including a frequently asked questions page to address those things that we are frequently asked. And also there are links there to the second media production that the ACA does. We have a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS. And for more information about that show, you can go to nonprofitsradio.com. We're live every other Saturday from 2 to 3:30. And yesterday's show featured a guest on the phone, Guy P. Harrison, author of the new book, 50 Reasons People Give for Believing in a God. He was on for the whole show, and we're very glad to have him on. I've been reading the book, and I'm enjoying it, and I think it fills a valuable niche, and I think it's one that people will probably end up recommending, especially to believers. It's one of those edging in books that's not necessarily this as polemic or insulting, I guess. It's difficult not to come across as arrogant, condescending, insulting, belittling when you're talking about people's core beliefs and values, or deeply held and cherished beliefs that they've had for a long time. I'm not immune to it. There are times on the show where I've been mildly abrasive. I've been downright pissed off and insulting a few times. I don't strive for that, though. But so that's what's going on. You can find out more about the nonprofits at that website. Also, the ACA, the audio portion of this program is available as a podcast and as a download from the website. And the video portion is available in full at Google Video. You can go to atheist-experience.com for more information. Click on the archive link and scroll down to the bottom. You can expand it out. It's sorted out by years. We've been on for nearly 11 years, or just over 11 years. No, February will be 11 years, I think, for the show. We don't have the video for all the episodes up there, but there are a lot. You should be able to sort through, find subjects you're interested in. Feel free to watch them there. There are also a number of fans of the show around the world now that we've put it up on the on the web who have been picking out their favorite clips and posting them up on YouTube. So we've added a fan contribution page to the Atheist Experience website with links to some of the videos that people have put up. If that helps anybody, it's obviously helped the show because people surfing around YouTube will stumble across a clip and say, hey, what the heck is this? And then they'll end up finding out more about us and watching the show that way. So here we are in our new time slot, starting late. The magical underwear brigade preempted us for a little while, but we're looking forward to taking calls. And actually, there's already one call in line, which really kind of makes me optimistic. Except, is it Danny?
Yeah.
Are you in Maryland?
Yeah, I live right outside.
Oh, so you're not calling from Austin?
No, that's why I actually called at the new start time at 5:30 Eastern, and you weren't on, but glad I got on.
Well, we're on now, so we thank you for being the first caller at the new start time. What do you got for us?
Awesome. Well, I want to say I'm a big fan. I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thanks.
It's definitely the best atheist show I've ever seen. I've only seen 2 or 3. It's certainly the best one.
Well, I'll see a few more before you start calling us best.
But I wanted to call in because I was reading the Maryland Constitution a couple of weeks ago, and I find the current state of the Constitution in this day and age to be incredibly offensive and very. It mentions God several times. I can just read under the Declaration of Rights how it begins. It says, "We, the people of the state of Maryland, grateful to Almighty God for our civil and religious liberty, and taking into our serious consideration the best means of establishing a good constitution in this state, for the sure foundation and more permanent security thereof declare." And then, a bunch of the articles refer to God explicitly.
Right.
And
that's actually pretty common.
Is it common?
Yeah, and in Texas, in the Texas Constitution, it says that nobody can hold public office, or nobody can be prevented from holding public office based on their religious beliefs. And then at the end, it says, provided they believe in a God.
Provided. Okay.
Now
that's exactly what the Maryland Constitution says.
Yeah, and that I can't remember the exact Supreme Court ruling.
Actually, I think it was Torcaso v. Watkins.
Torcaso Watkins?
Yeah, that overturned it.
You may actually be right, but I don't have them all memorized. But one of the Supreme Court decisions, and it may be Torcaso v. Watson, so you may want to look that up, basically rendered that null and void. It is not allowed for a state's constitution to enforce as law something that would be a violation of the U.S. Constitution. And so while those things still exist in the constitutions, they have no teeth, they can't be enforced. I'd love for, ideally I'd love for somebody to go in and rip them out. But the problem is the way things are structured, the only way to actually rip them out would be to propose a constitutional amendment and get that through and voted on. And that costs time and money. It may actually not pass, despite the fact that this is unconstitutional and has no business being in there. So you may just end up spinning your wheels going in circles trying to remove something that, if the majority of the people don't want it removed, it's not going to happen, even though it's unconstitutional.
Okay. All right. That's I guess, interesting to know that.
Can we get a little more volume? I'm having a hard time hearing Danny.
I can speak up. I speak quietly.
That's
been
great.
told that.
That's great.
I had another question for Matt. I saw on some of the shows I've been able to catch on the podcast that you were in the military. Mm-hmm. Were you an atheist while you were in the military?
No.
Or? No.
I was.
She was.
How is it viewed in the military? Because I have a few friends that are going into the military this year that are atheists.
Yeah. When I originally joined the military, it was, I don't know, it was really kind of a non-issue. There's always been this sort of ceremonial deism that was present in some of the ceremonies and everything, but it was not overtly a religious expression. It was sort of like the same kind of ceremonial deism that you see in like the Declaration of Independence or something.
Okay.
as time went on, it got more and more overt. The evangelical crowd kind of dug their heels in and started doing their evangelizing, and by the time I left, it was actually a pretty uncomfortable situation for atheists.
Okay.
To the point where, I mean, every parade, every change of command, everything had overtly religious activities inserted in it, and that's actually not part of the military history. So they couldn't fall back.
It's a more recent phenomenon.
Pardon me?
I said it's a more recent phenomenon that they do.
I would say that it has picked up probably slowly, but probably in the last 15 years or so, it's gotten much more overt.
Okay, because all the time there's Navy parties and Army parties and such right around D.C. in the same areas that I socialize in, and they're very denominational type parties and activities that I always see associated with the military. So I was just curious how that went over in the military.
Yeah, and you even have some commanders who think that they can, an episode that happened when I was still in the reserves. A brigade commander tried to have the chaplain come in and lead a prayer before each of his staff calls. Well, you can't do that. Officers don't come to staff call either voluntarily or because they want to have a prayer meeting. They come to staff call to do the brigade's business, and that's not praying to whatever deity the commander believes in.
And there's actually a couple of lawsuits going on now with regard to the problems in the military with regard to religion and atheism. There's a young private from Kansas that's suing, and he's received death threats and a number of other problems. And there's somebody else who just recently sued because they were being forced to attend services. And the problem. Yeah, this is relatively recent. It's certainly gotten worse over the last 15, 20 years, whatever. But it branches out from just the daily activities of individual soldiers, sailors, Marine, and airmen.
Right.
You had the problems at the Air Force Academy, where you had evangelical Christians who were essentially hazing non-believers and Jews in particular, and that was exposed. And then you have high-ranking military chaplains who write books that say atheists can't be good soldiers, and then they get an endorsement from General Petraeus, for example. And this, there are two of the highest-ranking individual with regard to our efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan at the present time, and a very high-ranking chaplain. One of them is making this statement that is divisive, untrue. It maligns many good military personnel, and one of them is making the statement, and the other one is endorsing it. Granted, he endorsed the book on the whole, but it would surprise me. Maybe he didn't read it, but that's irresponsible as well. And so, yeah, there's this problem within the military. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily terrible for everybody. There are plenty of people in the military who probably never have any issue at all. One of the things that Oak talked about, he was retired. He was in for 30 years. He got out before some of the more recent things have happened. But his point was that, he never really had any issues. He was an atheist the entire time and never had an issue. But you hear it all the time, this, no atheists in foxholes nonsense. And even when we saw Religulous the other night, there was somebody in there who made a comment along those lines, or maybe it was another thing that I was watching where somebody basically said, when you're under fire, there are no atheists in foxholes and type thing. Well, that's not true. There are atheists in foxholes. And Pat Tillman, for example,
I was just thinking of him.
Yeah,
I've seen him portrayed as incredibly spiritual by some propaganda, and I find it ridiculous. And he was quite an atheist. Like, he made no bones about it, yet they still portray him as a spiritual person who died for this and that when he died because he believed in fighting for his country and for no other reason. And
And if you believe the reports, if the reports about what happened are accurate, at the time under fire, when people around him were losing their head and calling out to their God, he's the one who smacked them to attention and said, hey, we've got to take care of ourselves here, and focus on the task at hand. And I don't want to make that sound like, it's not the atheists that are weak, it's the religious people that are weak. That's not the point. The point is that from a practical standpoint, a secular point of view allows you to deal with reality on reality's terms. If you believe something and it gives you hope or comfort, good for you, as long as those beliefs don't dictate actions that affect other people. Once that happens, I'm no longer just going to say it's okay for you to have those beliefs, because it's not okay.
Right.
If your beliefs wind up costing other people their lives or taking away and preventing other people's rights and freedoms, that's a big problem.
Right. Okay. And I had just one more question. I don't want to take up
Sure.
all your time and such.
Well, nobody else has called yet, so.
Okay. Well. Okay then. I majored in philosophy and sociology both, and so I had to do a lot of reading from all ages since the beginning of writing, basically. And it seems to me that culture to culture and globally, when a mindset is replaced, which is a religious mindset is replaced, it's replaced by another religious mindset. And do you ever think there'll come a time where it will be replaced by a secular rationality rather than another religious dogmatic mindset? Because it seems we're running out of places for theists to go after their mindsets and dogmas get overturned.
Yeah. I'd certainly like to think that that's what, I do think that for the most part with most people is what will eventually happen. When it'll happen, whether or not I'll be alive to even get a whiff of that is another thing. But there's another problem to this, and that is when you look at kind of from an anthropological standpoint of how we've invented gods. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the Nonprofit Show.
Okay.
We used to invent gods that were very specific and filled very specific niches. And then once science and science prompted our understanding of of reality, we found out, Zeus isn't really throwing lightning bolts, and there isn't really a god that drags the sun around the earth, because the earth goes around the sun, and et cetera, et cetera. And so those gods get replaced by gods that are gradually more nebulous. And that's so you get towards the modern area where you have a lot of people who buy into a monotheistic, or I guess maybe we should say pseudo-monotheistic, considering
Yes.
everything else.
With the Trinity
But their view of God is that God is transcendent. It transcends time, reality, whatever the heck that is, and how they come up with it. But they've defined their God in such a way that it is very unlikely to be disproven by simple discoveries, that it's something that ends up just being taken on faith. They don't need any rational justification for it. And so it's really difficult to eradicate ideas like that. And the next step, which we're seeing more of now, I think, is the people who'd say, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Now they've just defined everything away, and they've come up with a term that's really meaningless. That even they probably don't have a good definition for. But I'm spiritual. I don't even want to try and describe it, because no matter how many times I ask for people to explain it, nobody can.
I heard you guys get into that last week with your what does it mean episode, and I've encountered that quite a bit, and it becomes frustrating, because I have really good friends that don't even believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and still claim to be Christians, and I can't for the life of me figure out why they're holding on to the dogma when they reject the basic tenets of the dogma, which is, if you push most theists, they end up rejecting some of the basic and major tenets of their dogma, like the foundations of their dogma, yet they still try to hold on to the fact that their beliefs are founded in something, and I just find it incredibly frustrating.
Well, I think that part of the reason people cling so tenaciously to religious beliefs, even in the face of of overwhelming evidence that what they believe probably isn't true. I think it's an almost childish need for certainty in their lives. You know, and science doesn't give you any certainties. We deal in probabilities, but we try to quantify our uncertainties when we talk about things. I work as an engineer, so everything I do is subject to some degree of uncertainty. Well,
Right.
I'm comfortable with that because I can quantify that uncertainty and then use it to inform my decisions. And I think what you have a lot of people dealing with is that they can't deal with the level of uncertainty about, you know, well, what happens after you die, or, you know, what if there is no God? What if we're really all alone in the universe? And so these things cause, I don't know, some kind of personal crisis or whatever. And so when it comes to taking that next step and rejecting religious claims, they just can't do it. And I'm probably oversimplifying a lot of what happens there, but that's something that seems to come up over and over again when people email us. You know, we try to pin them down to get them to describe their beliefs and explain, you know, what it is, what are you asking? You know, what's the question here? And it gets right down to they need to know for sure something, and there aren't any for sures in life.
I understand that
But
completely.
there are some incredibly close to for sure's. Like I've talked many times on the show about how I reject the idea of absolute certainty. So when people come and say, like Bill Maher's done recently, that, you know, atheists are just as bad as the religious folks, because they claim I don't claim absolute certainty that there are no gods. I just happen. Well, first of all, atheism is simply a lack of belief or a lack of acceptance of the claim that gods exist. I go a step
Completely agree
further.
there.
Sorry?
I said I completely agree there that atheism doesn't put forth any positive beliefs. It's just the rejection of theism.
I actually go the step further towards strong atheism, and I would say that I actively believe that there are no gods. Can I prove this? Can I demonstrate it? No. Is it anything I claim with an extremely high degree of certainty? Pretty high, but not nearly so high as things that, you know, we learn about reality from science. There are some things. I mean, you can throw a cotton ball at me using whatever weaponry you want, as long as the cotton ball is the only thing in there. You don't like hide something behind it. You cannot possibly get that thing going fast enough to do me any real harm. There's just not enough mass there. We understand that. Now, there could be, you know, a freak accident, you know, gunpowder, whatever sticks to it and turns it into a better projectile. But in those specific circumstances where just the cotton ball is going to impact me, there's simply no way, practical or possibly otherwise, for it to do harm. So that's like way up there at the damn near certain, if not really certain level.
I'm in that exact same boat. I guess I would be considered an anti-theist, but I certainly believe that every single conception of God that I've ever been presented with, which is a lot from, you know, Judaism to Christianity, Islam, Zoroastrianism, etc. And I believe that they're all easily refutable. And so in that case, I can say that there's no God, and the tripartite God of omniscient, omnipotent, and benevolent, I also believe is a logical fallacy.
Yeah.
So if that's how people are going to decide God, then, determine God, I can say that there is no God. And I actually wrote my sociology dissertation on American students and the rise of fundamentalism and the increase in the population that believes they know basically everything for certain because the Bible is a fact, and how that is affecting our public education and why we're ranked as low as we're ranked in most standardized testing.
Yep, definitely.
And that is that such a excuse me, a mindset in which you believe you know everything, even from the time you're 5, 6, 7 years old, you know everything, and brilliant physicians, brilliant, physicists, brilliant biologists, they don't know anything. They've got it all wrong.
Yeah, and that is
a dangerous mindset going up against other countries that don't produce children with a mindset, that produce children that have an inquisitive mind.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is really important, and it's an important distinction. Yes, I'll freely admit I don't just not believe in a God. I actually believe there are no gods. The difference between me and somebody who says they believe in a God is that I don't pretend to know this for certain. I don't pretend that I can necessarily demonstrate that claim with any evidence. It's just my view based on the assessment, and there are some good reasons, and I think I can make a good case for it. But the other thing is, my position, like any scientific position, is tentative. The second that I am presented with evidence and reasoned argument that I'm wrong, then my belief changes. I don't dogmatically cling on to anything. Science is your religion. No, I don't have any religion at all. I trust science because it is consistently demonstrated that it's the single most reliable way of discovering the truth about reality. Does it get it wrong sometimes? Sure, but the only thing you can correct science with is more science.
Right.
So.
Well, and Danny, one of the things that you brought up here, it's kind of important when you're talking about teaching kids and the rise of fundamentalism. I mean, we get some email once in a while with people asking, hey, what's the harm in people believing these religious things? I mean, as long as they're not pushing them on us, what's the big deal? And the big deal is that anything that erodes your ability to think critically about things is harmful. It's not just a benign belief, it's actively harmful. And that's what people are doing to their kids when they infect them with these beliefs. You have this special category of beliefs that are not subject to any kind of questioning. And so, you see it in every sphere, whether it's science or history or anything else. People will look at, historical claims of accuracy for the Bible. And you can look at some events in the Bible we can validate through extra biblical resources. And so the people that claim that the Bible is historically accurate will accept that. And they'll even cite that evidence.
Yeah.
Oh, see, the Bible is historically accurate. But then when you have other science, same principles, that actively refute a claim in the Bible. For example, the historicity of the Exodus. That's been totally demolished, okay?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And people will actively reject the very same science that confirms another piece, and so you've got this cognitive dissonance at work here, and frankly, I don't know how they can maintain any type of integrity and reconcile that except to reject the whole thing.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way. I'm often frustrated by, religious people picking and choosing that, they'll choose. In my opinion, the Bible certainly says that the earth is flat, with the four corners and such like that, and they'll reject things that, I mean, they'll accept things that prove the world is spherical, but reject things that are of the same scientific caliber and, done by the same scientific method, and I don't get it sometimes.
Or they'll come up with something that's actively untrue. For example, you talk about the claim, that the earth is flat that you find in the Bible, or evidence that that's what the belief was. And then they'll say, oh, but scientists believe that the earth was flat, up until, I forget what the claim is now. It kind of morphs from time to time. But the fact is that's not true. I mean, the ancient Greeks knew that the earth wasn't flat. So, it's like, okay, scientists...
I think it was Aristophanes who calculated the circumference of the earth.
The fact that the earth is not flat has been known for a long time by scientists. And it was not theologians that came up with that.
So I think what you're talking about, and let me hit this real quick, Danny, we're starting to actually get other calls, so I hope this will hit the point, is the believers, I think some believers are kind of forced to pick and choose because there are areas where the tenets or what the Bible says or whatever their holy book says for other religions conflict with what we now know to be true, the scientifically justified understanding of reality. And in the areas where it doesn't matter to their religious point of view and it actually affects their daily lives, they're willing to go along with the science.
Right.
In the places where it's not going to affect their daily life, in the places where this is kind of a personal thing, they're willing to disregard science. And we're getting to a point where the distinction between those two is becoming very, very narrow. And some of us went and saw Bill Maher's Religulous on Friday, and some saw it on Saturday. He had Ken Ham from the Creation Museum sitting there talking, and what Ken basically did was, Bill had asked him, why do you believe this, about the flood and the talking snake and Adam and Eve and this, and if I'm remembering it right, it was Ken Ham who said this. If not, then it's at least in the movie. The response was, well, if that part of the Bible is not true, then I have no reason to believe the other part of the Bible is true. And I immediately, nice and loud, said, amen.
Exactly.
But you've got it backwards. Because you already believe this part, you're forced to believe this other crap in order to maintain consistency, rather than doing what an honest, skeptical, critical thinker would do, which is say, wow, he's obviously done it. He's obviously said, well, if this part's not true, then this other part might not be true either. But he's come to the conclusion he doesn't want to get rid of it, so he's going to cling on to these 6,000-year-old earth, man walked with dinosaurs, global flood, all of these things that are just absurd in the face of what mankind's learned since the frickin' Bronze Age. And whereas I would think that most reasonable people who aren't being trapped by the blinders and fear of religion would say, okay, let me assess this other claim on its own as well. There is some reason to perhaps doubt it, but it's possible that this claim could still be true. It is wrong for him to say that there's two things in the Bible, and if this one's false, this one must be true. There are actually true things in the Bible as well. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it's historically accurate, I mean, who knows? But
well, actually, we have ways of verifying.
Well, it's a lot of it, yeah.
A lot of it. So,
I mean, when they talk about Egypt, well, Egypt was a real place, but that doesn't prove that what the Bible claims happened there happened. But Danny, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. We really appreciate the call, and thanks for being the first call on the new show.
All right, thanks a lot. You guys do a tremendous job. I really appreciate it. Even all the way out here. If I was within 1,000 miles of Austin, I would come to happy hour with you guys.
All right. Well, when you get within 1,000 miles, I'll hold you to it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Danny. Is it Isaac? Hello?
Yes, it is.
How you doing?
Very well, Matt. Is that Tracy with you this evening?
No, it's Jen.
Oh, hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you?
Huge fan of the show. I'm Indian. I'm originally from Kerala. That's a South Indian state. I'm calling from London this evening.
Oh,
wow.
Sweet.
We're getting nothing but out-of-town calls, but I'm really happy to hear from London. So go ahead.
Yeah, this is just something that I wanted your opinion on. I'm not entirely sure if it's true or not. It's got to do with how the sort of fundy right in the U.S. sells this image of a degenerate secular Europe, especially the Scandinavian countries, which, I mean, this is information I get from my cousins who've lived in the U.S. for a while, about how it's commonly sold to sort of church-going crowds that if you look at societies which have openly become secular, separation of church and state, predominantly atheist, where there's gay rights and all the rest of it, legal euthanasia. I mean, all these societies have gone down the drain and how it's all on decline. Is that, I mean, I don't know how far that's true and whether the media is sort of helping to sell this to the American public by actually not opening up people to the whole idea that, there's a world outside the United States and it's not all hell as it's sold.
Yeah, I think the basic problem with Europe, according to the fundies, is that you guys are having way too much sex.
I wish.
So that's one of the issues. The fundies they want everybody to wait until marriage, and so the fact that countries like the Netherlands, for example, have very explicit sex education and ready availability of birth control, that's seen as contributing to the moral decline of young people. Some of us think that it's just contributing to the moral or to the decline of teenage pregnancy, which is a good thing. Now, one of the interesting things is that the fundies actually do promote this whole rise of liberalism as being one of the things that's causing societal decay. But if you look at some of the indicators of, I guess, societal health, teenage pregnancy being one of them. We've got a situation in Texas which has one of the highest, if not the highest, rate of teen births in the U.S.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what I was going to get to. That is my next point, because I work in medicine, and a colleague of mine is a consultant in sexual health and HIV, and he did come to New York to attend an international symposium, and he came back absolutely gobsmacked, because for all its claims of abstinence-only education and all the rest of it, and how they're selling it as this panacea from all evil ills, so to speak, America has some shocking statistics.
Yeah.
I mean, all these countries where sex education is taught as it should be have far lower incidence of sexually transmitted diseases, HIV, teenage pregnancies, abortions, all the rest of it. So it's an interesting thing.
Yes, abstinence is an abject failure. And the thing is, when these things are pointed out to the fundies and the people that promote abstinence only, what they do is they say, oh, but the people who got pregnant, they weren't practicing abstinence, so they don't.
Oh my goodness, that's
I mean, in project management,
Hey, and you know
call it
what?
printing the data.
If your parents didn't have children, the odds are you won't either. To kind of hit the point that you were talking about how these things are represented, it's a little difficult to say, because you have, I guess, the extreme fundamentalist voice is perhaps a bigger minority or a smaller minority than some people would recognize, because they're so darn loud. And what they end up doing, it's not so much the media. It's when the media doesn't agree with them, then that's the media that has the liberal media bias. And when it does agree with them, that's
liberal media that's sort of branded Sarah Palin as this. Okay, I'm not going there because it's not a political show, but anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what they end up doing. Is anybody who doesn't agree with them, that's the liberal media bias. Anybody who does, that's the, and I hate to do this, but fair and balanced thing, and I'm not necessarily hammering Fox. And the fact of the matter is that you're going to find liberals and conservatives in almost all the different media outlets at some point or other. Yes, some stations are going to be more leaning one way than the other, and maybe that's to try and find a balance with the other. So yeah, there is this projection that liberalism leads to all these problems, and that the problems that we're seeing in the United States have happened because of gay rights, the wild and crazy 70s, because evidently disco kills. And in fact, what we find, which you pointed out, was in some cases where we actually have data and information, it completely contradicts this. The Journal of Religious Studies did a survey, or actually an investigation into the real data behind it. It's published online. We've been referring to this one study over and over again since it came out in, I think, 2005. It compares societal health to religiosity. And it's completely clear. Now, they make no claim of causation, and I would never do that either. But those who would say that a society is more healthy as it becomes more religious or more Christian or whatever, they are clearly demonstrated to be wrong by this study. That claim is refuted. And, highly atheistic countries like Japan or Sweden and some others have lower crime rates, lower violence rates, lower instances of teen pregnancy, lower suicide rates, lower transmission of sexually transmitted diseases. And yet you go in the United States, even within our own country, which it's almost unfair to compare one part of it to another, because some of the states are so different in how they do things. In the areas where they've implemented abstinence-only education, we have the data back. It doesn't work. We should have realized that kids are pretty much the same as they've always been. They're little balls of hormones that want to get along. And the abstinence-only education, yes, abstinence works, but teaching them that as the only way is irresponsible. And I think it should be damn near criminal based on the results. You have the highest rates of teenage pregnancy, the highest rates of sexually transmitted diseases in those areas. And now, hopefully we can start moving towards a 21st century education in the health area as well as in the natural sciences.
I sincerely hope so. I mean, talking about abstinence only, we had recently a very, this is looking at it from a light side, we had the Jonas brothers, who are apparently big in the United States, who sort of came over to England and were in London promoting a show and all the rest of it. And the whole purity ring, chastity ring thing came up in the media. And seriously, I mean, most of the people in England were looking at them as though they were space aliens or something. and they came on to talk shows here, and they sort of talking about how this is a good thing. And you could just see the look in the host's face. It was incredible. I mean, they might as well have been from another planet, really.
That's the purity ring thing has been popular here for a number of years. It may actually be more popular among evangelicals than the idea of abstinence-only education. It's kind of this. It's almost like a chastity belt for that's completely ineffective. And there was a big joke about the teenagers were finding a way around their promise. And I won't tell you how, but it was called the everything but plan. And
you're absolutely right. I have some statistics on that, but I shan't air that on a public access television show because it's too graphic.
I could say it, I just don't want to. That's our first day at the 2 weeks, and I don't want to tell everybody that they were doing anal sex. But did I say that?
Guys, I must compliment you on your show. It's phenomenal. I mean, I just picked it up on YouTube sort of a couple of weeks ago. It's the best thing I've seen. You present a very sane argument for, I mean, not just for atheism, for rational thinking, and as to how logical reasoning should be the backbone of any decision you make. And kudos to you.
Well, thank you very much. And it means more coming from somebody with an accent living in a country that I actually like. I like our country as well. I don't want to sound like I'm anti-United States. I'm a huge fan of our country, which is why I'm here hoping that I can try and help fix it a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, there is an ulterior motive to this because I am considering moving to the United States for various career reasons.
I'll recommend Austin.
For obvious reasons, this is playing at the back of my mind as to, am I making the right move? Am I going to meet a bunch of freaks? Oh, I'm kidding. I know. I've been to the U.S.
Come to Austin. You'll be fine.
Lovely, lovely people.
If you move to Austin, you'll be fine, and you'll meet a bunch of freaks.
Yeah.
Again, as the previous caller said, if I'm anywhere in the region of Austin, I'll absolutely make it a point to get to Threadgill for it.
Okay.
Well, please do. Thanks a lot for calling, Isaac. We appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We got, is it Tim?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Tim?
Doing all right. So I don't know that we need to have a long discussion. I've seen this show for a while. Obviously, you've been around a while. I don't understand the point. That's my only thing. I don't get the point. It's like I don't believe in Santa Claus, but I don't go around shaking children saying there's no Santa Claus. If somebody gets some kind of hope or strength from believing in a higher power, why go on and start a TV show saying there's no damn Santa Claus? Don't be happy. Don't have hope. Don't believe in what you believe in. It loses me.
Okay. I'm not saying don't have hope, don't be happy, but the people who believe in Santa Claus aren't trying to take away the rights and freedoms of other people, and they're not trying to legislate their beliefs onto everybody else. That's the problem. They're not out starting wars with the people who don't believe in Santa Claus or who have a different belief in Santa Claus. The atheist
Isn't that beyond atheism, though?
Sorry?
Isn't that more of a political thing than just putting it under the umbrella of atheism?
No, because, well, I'm not putting anything under the umbrella of atheism. I talk about, first of all, whatever the callers want to talk about. If somebody wants to give what they believe and why, we can have a discussion about it. If I agree, great. If I don't, I'll explain why. We're here partly, the atheist community of Austin, to let other atheists know that they're not alone, so that they don't have to sit quietly in the corner and nod while their Christian friends are saying something, so they don't have to be rude. They have places where they can come and visit with other like-minded individuals. It's not a political thing. Within the ACA, there are people of all sorts of political beliefs. There are Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents. There are people who are pro-life, pro-choice. We have lots of debates. So the thing is that we have intelligent discussions, and one of the things that we only have to agree on one thing, and that is that we don't actually believe in a God. That's the only requirement for membership. It turns out we agree on a lot of other things, and that is that we agree that reason and evidence are the best way to make decisions about reality, and that for people to try to impose their religious beliefs on others is wrong.
Isn't that somewhat what your show does on the flip side of it, though?
No, I'm not imposing my beliefs on anybody.
If the whole point of the show is to challenge the religious belief or people of faith, then it seems like that's promoting it in the same.
I promote reason, skepticism, evidence, logic, science. I'm evangelical when it comes to those things. I have no problem with that at all.
Right, but
you don't think those are good things?
The same thing as somebody who's trying to shove Jesus down somebody else's throat.
I'm not trying to legislate that people exercise reason. I want them to exercise reason because it frickin' works. I would never legislate. I would never make religion illegal. I would never. I'm a huge fan of the First Amendment that guarantees that everyone has a freedom of religion and a freedom of expression. That's not an issue. I'm not doing that at all.
It just seems somewhat hypocritical from what I'm saying. Like I said, if you're challenging, if you're going against the people who get up on the pulpit and preach Jesus, and you're doing the same thing on the opposite side, it seems somewhat hypocritical.
How so? I mean, are you calling?
And I'm not a Jesus person. I'm not a church person. I do believe in a higher power, whatever you want to say. So I'm not taking up for the Jesus people, and I don't want necessarily to get brochures shoved in my face when I go to see an Ozzy Osbourne concert. However, I just see that what you're doing is somewhat pretty much the same thing that the other side's doing, except you think you're better because you don't believe in God.
Well, no, but...
Did I say that?
No,
Okay.
you didn't ever say that. In fact, we've never said that on this show.
I might say it, depending on how you want to define that.
But one of the things that we have talked about, in fact, just a few minutes ago, is that sometimes religious beliefs are not benign. It's not a matter of hope or being happy or anything. Sometimes religious beliefs are actively harmful.
Let's say there's somebody who believes.
Sure, but then not to use the phrase on the other side of the coin again, but I'm going to say on the other side of the coin again, extreme beliefs in Satanism, or what some would say would be the opposite, can be equally harmful.
I'm opposed to that as well. That's still a religious belief. It's still a supernatural belief. It's still unjustified by reason. Let me ask you, if there's a parent, which there have been several in the last year that we've had to comment, who decided not to get their child medical treatment and pray instead, do you have a problem with that?
Well, that's one of those things where it's hard to watch. You see these shows that are on, say, National Geographic or on Science or on some of the other channels where they talk about third world beliefs and how they cut up their kids.
No, we're not talking about third world beliefs.
No. I'm just saying, as a matter of faith, they do certain things that I would obviously object.
No, we're not talking about third world beliefs. We're talking about people in the United States who have access to medical care that would save their child's life, and they reject it in favor of prayer. Do you have a problem with that?
Again, I'm using this extreme example of people who have a belief that what they're doing for their child is right. I don't know that I necessarily have I don't necessarily that I could say that I could take someone to task for doing what they believe in.
Okay.
Well, I can.
I can, and I have, and I will continue to. The thing is that you may look at it as hypocritical of me attacking them, but the fact of the matter is that there have been several times in the last year where parents have killed their kids by not seeking medical attention to solve.
That's an exception, not the rule. It's not like everybody believes.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's the exception.
Kids die. I think it would be more of a challenge to take up against people who are abusing their children outright, which there's a lot more numbers of that, I would think, and I guess we could go to Google to find some statistics. I don't think there would be more kids getting abused, kidnapped, and murdered that are not in the name of God and not just refusing medical treatment.
So what? I'm opposed to that too. I'm talking about a particular problem, and that is people who believe things without good evidence make bad decisions that can harm and kill other people. And I think, hang on, you can call me hypocritical for voicing an opposition to that, but I think anybody who wouldn't voice an opposition to that is immoral.
Yes, I agree.
And I'm happy to voice opposition to irrational and dangerous beliefs. And the problem is that so many of those irrational and dangerous beliefs are pawned off on a daily basis as innocuous, hopeful, good-feeling, does no harm religion. And that's not the case. Every second that people spend wasting believing something that's not true, instead of trying to find out whether it is true, trying to find out as best they can a good understanding of reality to help them make decisions, that's a moment wasted.
But don't you think if somebody is goofy enough, crazy enough to believe that Jesus is going to save my kid so I don't need to bring him to the hospital, do you really think that they're not warped in the other areas that are going
that's
to
the point. I think they are.
I think if you just take God out of the picture of that one person, that one adult's life, that all of a sudden they're going to be a good parent?
No. I think that they're warped in other ways. I'm talking about ending this superstition across the board. Because
it's still not religious. It's not the religion or the belief in a higher power or God that's making them a crazy person.
It's not making them crazy. It's not making them crazy, but it's dictating that action. If you don't believe in a God, if you don't believe that a God can answer prayer and heal your kid, then you don't have that as an option, and you can't possibly use that as an excuse. It's like a drug addict who's been stashing things all around the house. If we're going to help clean them up, we need to find all the stashes, and we need to find all the problem areas. I'm not preaching any sort of panacea cure-all, although I'm pretty much convinced that the world would be a much better place if religion were completely gone. I said I wouldn't ever make a law to prohibit it, and I wouldn't. Everybody has to follow the dictates of their own conscience, but that has to be metered by its effect on other individuals, effect on society as a whole, and that's what I'm moving towards, or trying to move towards, is offering people. I was a fundamentalist Christian for 20 some odd years and was studying to be a preacher. I'm trying to give people some of the same information that helped me realize that my beliefs were unjustified. And, yes, it's not always going to cause great harm, but sometimes it does. And taking somebody's belief in God away, which is something you can't do, it's not like I can steal their God belief away. They give it up. The point is to have people give it up for really good, rational reasons. It's not just I'm mad at God. Oh, I'm sick and tired of, donating 15, 20% of my salary to the church. I'd really rather go out and have lots of sex and drink, but my religion says I can't, so the hell with that. I don't want to be a Catholic anymore because they're against birth control. That's not it. Coming up with a rational worldview, a good way to make decisions. If somebody abandons religion on those grounds, then I'm all for it. And I think that the world will be a better place for it. We may never find out, but I don't see, I understand that, from the point of view of some people, they're just like those religious people. They're preaching their point of view. No, it's not quite the same. And in a conflict, the truth doesn't necessarily lie halfway between. One side can just be right or wrong. So I'll take you off hold, Tim. Oh, maybe not. We've got like 3-4 minutes?
Yeah.
4 minutes left because we got a short show this week. So I want to. I think I ditched the wrong one. Nope, I didn't. Is it John?
Yes.
How you doing, John?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. Do you believe in freedom of conscience?
I just said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just answered that question a couple minutes ago, and the answer is yes. I specifically said that I support
Oh, you
First
did?
Amendment.
Well, I just turned your... How do you think atheism keeps order in the world?
I don't think it does.
I don't.
Well, then religion keeps order, don't you think it does?
No, it
No.
doesn't. The police.
Oh, no, it
law
doesn't.
enforcement-
Just a blanket, no, it doesn't?
Yes, that's correct. No, it doesn't.
Of course it does.
Uh,
It keeps people organized.
No, it doesn't.
You're actually conflating a couple of points here. And first of all, there's a delay, so don't listen to your TV. Let me hit this real quick, and I'll just let you go because we're almost out of time anyway. But I am going to answer the question, and hopefully in a way that'll clear up the explanation. I don't think atheism is going to be any kind of panacea or fix-all. I don't think it's going to keep order. Atheism isn't a belief. It's not a worldview. It has no tenets, no dogma. It has no instructions. It isn't a thing. It is a position of not accepting claims about the existence of a God. There are atheists, for example, who are Buddhists, who still accept, perhaps some of them do, supernatural claims like reincarnation and things like that. Atheism is not the answer. I happen to be an atheist. I'm here on the Atheist Show because I see religion as one of the many problems, and actually at the foundation of religion is this credulity that affords us superstitious beliefs that are unjustified. What I think would be the solution is not atheism. I would never push atheism as a political view or a world solver or a policeman, world police, anything like that. It's rational decisions based on evidence. That's what I'm advocating. Religion doesn't keep the peace. And if you don't think so, I guess you just haven't been keeping up with history. Yes, religion can offer some people a moral rule book to follow, but there's no reason to think that rule book is actually correct. What some religions label sin, others don't. And I think the entire concept of sin is absolutely absurd. What we're really talking about is how do we deal with other people? Are we doing harm? Are we doing good? Those types of things don't need any religion or God to dictate to. They can begin from really simple premises. And we can build, as we have, a moral system that works. It's the police that keep the peace, as has been demonstrated countless times. And it's religions, including Christianity most recently, who had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the modern era based on rational, secular morals. And that's the way it really works. We're out of time. There's a list of the crew. Thanks everybody who tuned in for the first week in the new time slot. We'll be back again next week, Channel 16, beginning at 4:30. Feel free to come down and join us at Threadgills. Check the website for events, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.